Handle Your Business, a weekly podcast discussing a little of this and a little of that. Handle Your Business appropriately blends serious topics with fun topics, all in an effort to help you have a good or better life. So join me, your host, Lady Lashley, and some amazing guests every Sunday at 5 p.m. to explore everything from financial management to dealing with relationship challenges. Put it in your calendar every Sunday from 5 p.m. Tune in to Handle Your Business to get you ready for the week ahead. For more details, follow at Lady Lashley TT on Instagram and Facebook. Handle Your Business. Welcome to Handle Your Business with yours truly, Lady Lashley. This is the second part of it might be an ongoing series, all right, Understanding Insurance. I have Jessel Alexander, insurance expert, local insurance expert, joining me. A very, very good part one. We dealt with life insurance and a little bit of annuity, pension. And this is part two, where hopefully we will be able to talk in depth within the time on health insurance, a very, very critical service to us in Tobago, Trinidad, the Caribbean region, and the worldwide. Jessel, thank you for taking the time to join me. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to our conversation today.
Yeah. I may be looking forward to it more than you. Right, because very recently, I had the unfortunate experience of being in need of my health insurance. And when COVID started, I had to decide, about cutting costs. And I had to cut regular health insurance. And I opted to keep critical health insurance. And just as COVID, just as we're reopening, because COVID hasn't really come to an end, I said, well, you know what, let me cut some more because we're still experiencing, some issues. And that's one of the areas, that was kind of just up there in terms of the possibility. But COVID has caused so much pain and trauma, even for those of us who have not been infected with the COVID-19 virus. We have been affected in other ways that I suppose many of us may not have, even thought about or thought possible, and even health-wise, because if you're laid off or you're on half pay or part pay, or the issues with not moving around based on the restrictions, health becomes a challenge.
Definitely.
And so health insurance also becomes critical. So I suppose we can start off with you giving an explanation as to what exactly health insurance is. The basic one, I'd like you to start off, even if we don't get to critical health, I'd like you to start off by talking about what it is and explaining the difference between regular daily health insurance and critical health insurance.
No problem. Thank you so much, Lady Lashley, for having me, as I said. So we're going to talk a little bit about it. So what I would want to set as our foundation for this conversation is this. A health crisis should never become a financial crisis. So I want that to be our foundation. Health crisis should not be a financial crisis. So when I say that, what do I mean? So we are talking health insurance. Usually when persons come to me and say, Jessel, I'm looking for some health insurance, I ask them, what do you mean? Because the average person tend to lump everything often related to health as health insurance. However, in the insurance industry, there's a very distinct difference between health insurance and critical illness or disability insurance. So in terms of health insurance, when a person says, I'm looking for health insurance, what they're really talking about, or what they should be talking about, is the type of insurance that deals with what I would want to call preventative care health issues. Getting eyeglasses, having your dental checks, your regular doctor's visits, for parents who take their children to pediatricians, the vaccinations that the children need to get, and even going further into things like surgical procedures and so forth. And when you have health insurance, basically what you're doing is partnering with an insurance company to share the cost of that health procedures. So you get eyeglasses, so you buy a health plan. That health plan is very specific, very specific. And that's one of the things I keep saying to people. Insurance is a contract, and the insurance company sticks to the contract. So when you purchase health insurance, you have a contract or a schedule of benefits that basically outlines everything that you can claim for. It also indicates to you what would be your cost and copay. Well, I don't want to use too much of the language, but basically, I as the client would have a part of the cost to pay, and the insurance company is also going to cover a particular percentage. In most instances, when you have health insurance, the ratios would be something like probably 70, 30, 80, 20. And what does that mean? So I go to the doctor, and let's go surgery. I have a surgical procedure to do. This particular procedure is covered by my health plan. And the ratio that we're working with is 80-20. Basically, what it means, after I get the cost of my surgery, and my insurance company says, okay, yes, we're going to be covering this, 80-20. What it means is this: the insurance company covers 80% of the cost of the surgery, and I cover 20%. But it's not even that simple, because what we would ask for with that surgery would be a breakdown of cost. So you would have things like the doctor who is doing the particular surgery, anesthesis, room and board, that kind of breakdown. Because sometimes different categories of the cost of the surgery may have a different reimbursement value. So it's not as simple as 80-20 or 70-30.
Right.
What is fairly, yeah? What is fairly simple? Sorry, go ahead.
I was wondering, in terms of the different categories there, will there also be an instance where perhaps one of the items with a cost isn't covered by the insurance?
Yes, that can also happen, right? So which is why we ask for a breakdown as opposed to total cost $30,000, right? So we need to see the breakdown. The other thing that the insurance company works with, and I know this is sometimes upsetting to some people, but insurance company has a term called reasonable and customary cost. What is that? So again, you're going to do the same surgical procedure. Private hospital A says, here it's 30,000. But if your doctor says, well, I work with hospital A and I work with hospital B, but when you go to hospital B to get a costing, hospital B is $40,000 for the same procedure. So the insurance company has reasonable and customary, which basically means this: this procedure should cost within this bracket. And if you choose, so the insurance company says, our reasonable and customary cost for this particular procedure is $25,000. but your doctor has said 30. We are not telling you to find an institution that does it at 25,000. No. You can go ahead and do your procedure for your $30,000. However, our the cost that we would cover would be a maximum of 25,000, which means that the 5,000 beyond that is totally your cost. And sometimes persons probably are not aware of it before, or it comes as a surprise to them, so they get upset. But again, which is why I'm saying, when you do health insurance or any insurance, there's a contract to which the insurance company is very specific and they stick to it.
The thing about it, though, is that I don't know if other people are perhaps more diligent than I have been, but I know that when you go to an insurance agent and you say, okay, I need some health insurance, you may say, well, okay, ours is the best on the market. We have a 80-20% situation where you pay 20% upfront, more than likely, with a good plan, and the company will cover 80%. We cover all these major illnesses and so on. But that kind of breakdown that you're talking about, that only becomes known to me when I receive the actual document, because you hardly ever have an insurance agent that would actually go through all of that with you. So it's when you actually get the document, then you start seeing the fine print, even sometimes the list of service providers. I know I've had in the past, based on experience, first time around, applying for the insurance and only getting the list of providers after. We are in Tobago. Majority of the providers were in Trinidad. That in itself to me was problematic, because it meant that not only there was a need to foresee illness and so on, you have to be prepared, because it's not like you have helicopter costs in that insurance to be flown to Trinidad. And so when it was time to renew or get another policy, I said, well, okay, I'd like to see the list of approved providers first. And to get that, was an interesting experience. I suppose nobody had asked for it first, but I said, based on my experience, I need to know, who can have what. So those little things, I think for the average person, we will not necessarily really ever know that unless we were faced with it, because that's not an initial conversation when you're having that discussion with your insurance agent or potential insurance agent. Is there does the law say that this is something that should be made available to the potential client, even if they do not ask? Is there a burden, is there a responsibility on the insurance company and representatives to make this information available, or it's really up to the potential client to ask upfront and try to get it?
I don't believe that the law mandates that an insurance sales representative has to give provider listing before. I could be wrong, but I don't know. However, when you see, an insurance sales representative really has a lot of responsibility to put the client's best interest first. That is what should be happening when we meet. And it is, I guess, a matter of integrity in terms of how you do business, that would dictate that you share this type of information and not let it be a surprise. So the company that I work for, we have two types of health insurances that we sell. One is what we would refer to as the traditional type, whereby you are free to go to any health institution that you choose, free to. You pay the cost for whatever procedure, and then you fill in the form, attach your receipts, and we reimburse you. That is more so the traditional type. We also have the type that you would have just referred to, whereby we have a list of providers that we have partnered with. And at my company, the list is really very extensive. Eye care, dental, doctors, the private hospitals. But as you rightly said, we in Tobago, the list really doesn't favor us, so to speak.
No.
Right? Because almost everybody is in Trinidad. But what having a list of providers should be something that, especially for us who work in Tobago, that you let your client know that these are the possible places. If particular issues happen, you can go. Because even for those of us in Tobago, some of us have medical institutions or private doctors or dentists or eye specialists that we would go to in Trinidad, right? So it would be on the list. If it's on the list, the benefit to me as a client is this. Because the insurance company has partnered with these people, it means that I am able to get medical attention even if I don't have all the money. So my original example of the 30,000 surgery, not everybody can come up with $30,000. But if I have that particular health insurance plan that allows me to choose the provider, and the provider that I'm using is part of the network, what would happen is I would only be responsible for my part of the health cost. So it allows me to get health care without having to come up with all the money right away. Yeah. And that is a big benefit, because we know sometimes health issues come up in what we might want to call the worst possible time. And having to find the funds and so forth could be a difficult process for many patients.
Yeah, I particularly favor the second option because especially for us in Tobago, and I think a large part of the Caribbean, the way we work, a lot of people are still operating with month-to-month salaries, even people who are quote unquote gainfully employed with a government work. You know what I mean? It's unfortunate, but the level of salaries in Tobago and other small islands, it's not as competitive as other places. It's enough to get you by. Worse yet, if you are not single and you have dependents, you have to stretch, right? That's just the harsh reality of being in Tobago, some parts of Trinidad, depending on where you are, and the rest of the region. So people get by. And so that second option allows for you to be able to, let's say you're fortunate enough to have a small savings, or, you know, some other cash stashed in, you know, like a deposit or mutual funds or whatever. You can pull on that to supplement what you have, because we know that in our space, not many average people have a large stock portfolio, a large mutual fund portfolio. We may try to do the right thing. Those investments, I mean, when you look at, let's say 3% on your return, that could barely pay a month's rent for somebody, right? But this is a legal good way that they encourage us to get involved in, right? So we're taking the people who are trying to do it the right way. So that second option allows you, you know, a simple thing like the dentist, right? Going to the dentist, I know at my dentist, they recommend that you do a cleaning twice a year, every 6 months, right? You go in, if you have children, if you have one child, if you have 3 children, your children and the insurance, that's a sum that's going to come up for you and your family to do a cleaning. A cleaning is not a medical emergency, but we all know that if you don't necessarily get that done, you could be the best person at brushing your teeth. You are going to end up, you know, needing some kind of dental care. That's just the harsh reality. The average person will not even think about this. The average person will think about health only when we're in pain
That's
And
true.
by the time we feel paid, unfortunately, it's critical health insurance that we need. So that's why I was asking, about just making it upfront. I know in the past, sometimes even sales representatives to the insurance companies, they didn't have the information. So when you ask something, they have to run to Trinidad and ask that. And yes, the service providers, we don't have a whole lot of specialists in Tobago either. That's perhaps another reason why so many of the service providers are based in Trinidad, because many times you're looking at specialist care. We do have some GPs in Tobago who are on the list, but not necessarily specialist service providers. And that's just, I suppose, one of the harsh realities there. But when we look at the possibilities with the cost, and I want to just go in a bit with the paying upfront, because you said it very nicely in the beginning. Insurance is a contract with the insurance company to co-pay for the medical service that you require. So you are expected to pay part, and the company will cover part. If you get a good policy, they will cover a lot of it, providing that you don't overdo it, of course, right? Because then your premiums go up. But even with that, the insurance contracts many times require you to pay a certain amount upfront, pay for some of your services upfront, and you'll have the correct term for me. That little clause that they put there, where I think you sometimes, let's say you have to spend $2,500 before you could actually make a claim. Talk to me about that for somebody who may have never even understood how that works.
So basically, what we have is called a deductible. So when you purchase a health insurance, it's basically annual. So it's a year. And within that year, there is a deductible. What does that mean? Part of your insurance costs for the year must be borne by you. So you may purchase a health plan that says your annual deductible is $500. This means that, let's say your year runs from 1st January to 31st of December. Within the year, you go to get some kind of medical attention. The first $500 that you spend in the year, you will not get a reimbursement on it. So basically, January morning, you got up with some sort of pain and you go to see your GP. And your GP's fee is $500. That first $500, we want you to submit the claim because we want to know that you had the expense, but you will not get a reimbursement. Because the first $500 that you spend for the year is your expense. That's your deductible, right? 3 months later, though, you go back to the GP again because the pain is still nagging, and that's another $500. This one is where you would now start to experience the reimbursements because you would have already had your $500 earlier up in the year that covers your annual deductible. And all that you spend thereafter up until the 31st of December, those would be on the reimbursement basis.
Okay. So yes, the deductible, you pay a certain amount upfront, and then after that is completed, then you can begin to claim on the expenditure afterwards.
That's right.
So there are two types. I know that with you mentioned two types where you can make the payments, all of the payments upfront and put in a claim, or you can have a policy where you only pay your 20% or your 30% upfront and the company will handle the rest. You don't have to make the claim. Let's talk a little bit about the difference between those two, and what is there a difference in cost for you as the person? Is it obviously very much cheaper when you pay upfront and make the claim? How long is it taking to get you back your claim? That kind of thing.
Okay, so I think that most of the insurance companies in Trinidad and Tobago have both types of health plans, the traditional reimbursement plan, and then those where they network with particular providers. So the traditional health plan, that plan allows you to go to any health provider because the insurance company does not have a network association with whomever. So basically, you go to your doctor, whoever he or she is, or your surgical procedure, whatever. And when that is completed, there's a form to fill in. Basically, the doctor or the health institution fills in the form, stamps it up. The stamping is important because that is the proof. That's one of the proof that you were at either the doctor or the institution. And then you must have a receipt. So one of the other things, and I want to interject here, in Tobago, most of us go up to the public hospital to get health care. So that you cannot go to the public hospital, get health care, and say you're submitting a claim.
Right, because you didn't pay for that.
Because that's right, because you did not pay. Yeah. So there must be a cost to you in order for you to claim on a health plan. So with that type, fill in the information, stamp the forms, you must attach your receipt, and you submit to your insurance provider. Different companies would have different time periods in which they refund you. I know now, like my company, one of the things they've instituted, and COVID really did a lot of good. It's the automatic bank transfer. Mm-hmm. So prior to COVID, I submit a claim. I have to wait to get a check reimbursed to me. I deposit the check, then I get back my money. Now we are trying to use the technology and also to speed up that process of reimbursement. So we ask persons to provide us with their banking information, and we do a direct transfer to your bank account, right? But you must submit all your documentation before the claims can be reimbursed. One of the things that I want to say here too, when it comes to health insurance, most health insurance do not cover pre-existing conditions. That's your health insurance. Mm-hmm. So a good example would be this. A person is asthmatic. Asthma is fairly common, but once a person is asthmatic and then being diagnosed as asthmatic, and then they apply for health insurance, I can tell you 99% of the companies would have an exclusion for asthma. So you are not denied the health plan, you just have an exclusion, which is why when you are applying for health insurance, you have a lot of questions to answer about your health, because pre-existing conditions are not covered. So if that person gets an asthma attack, don't even bother to submit a claim, because it will be denied, right? Yeah. Pre-existing conditions are not covered. So that's traditional. The health plan that allows for where the company has partnered with different healthcare providers, that one, in terms of cost, it depends again on the company. Most of the company, let me not say most, for some of the companies, the traditional is actually more expensive because they're trying to push people away from that option and to make the option where there is a provider network more favorable.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. So because you see, the traditional, the other back end cost is paperwork and all of that, right? So you want to push people away from that type. Now, understand though that even if you have the health plan that allows for the provider network, if your doctor is not part of the company's network, it doesn't mean that you cannot go to your doctor and submit a normal paper application.
Right, yeah.
So you still can do that,
Yeah.
even though your plan has provider networks.
I think I saw with my health insurance, the and this may have been on the critical health one. I can't remember which one, but it did say what you're saying there. And it said as well that whereas within the provider network, it was 80-20, when you went outside, it went down to 70-30 or something like that. Yeah.
Correct. But you still can go to you, because you see, we cannot force people to choose the network that we have set up. We just can't, right? When it comes to healthcare, a big part of it is I feel comfortable treating with either this person or this institution, right? So the plan may be more expensive, the traditional plan may be more expensive depending on the company that you're dealing with. But as I said, the major benefit within a network plan is that you don't have to come up with all the money to get healthcare.
Okay. That's it's really an interesting time to be living in. You know, technology makes things, it was meant to make things a bit easier, but it has also implemented its own set of restrictions.
Yes.
Listening to you in the beginning, the need for a stamp, for example. I'm supposing that in a few years again, they're going to have to remove the physical stamp and have a digital stamp. Because
Probably,
in
yep.
this day and age, I don't know how many people will still have an ink stamp or even the seal press, right? Because
Yep.
I'm not sure that you can actually verify a seal press if you scan the document and send it through. So that in itself is a very interesting interesting reality when you look at some of these things. Signing up for insurance is so funny. The time fly, and we didn't even cover half of the things with this regular insurance. So we definitely gonna go again. But if somebody listens to this and they're in a position where they recognize having health insurance will be beneficial to them, and they want to try to have health insurance right now. You covered some things like pre-existing conditions and so on. What are the general requirements for an average person to get health insurance, decent health insurance, not scammy health insurance, decent health insurance that has you covered, don't have you paying? And I'm talking specifically here about those of us that not in a position to be pelting out $30,000 or even $300. Because Jessel, you said rightfully that in Tobago, many of the people go to the hospital, the public healthcare system, to get primary health care. And a main reason for that is not because our system's so good, it's because people don't have $300 to see a private doctor just for the time. And then when they prescribe something, you have to find another $50 to $500 to $1,000 to buy the medication. That's the harsh reality. So we're talking now about feasible options for the average person with a fairly stable job. What sort of costs are involved, what sort of requirements are involved to be able to get decent health insurance that at the very least you are afforded to go by the dentist, do your teeth cleaning, do a filling if you need a filling. A lot of people need filling. Go by the doctor for your annual checkup, for the men who have the whole checkup that they need to do, for the women who have their special checkup. Let's talk about that.
Right. So when you're thinking of purchasing health insurance, One of the things that you need when it comes to cost is most companies' health insurance purchased as an individual carries an annual premium. So, like your car insurance, annual premium, or your house insurance. That tends to be a challenge for many persons to come up with the annual premium. So I can speak specifically to Tobago because this is where I function. Um, Sometimes persons in year one, they're all anxious to get a health plan because something is happening and they want to make sure that they have a health plan.
Right.
And they're able to come up with the annual premium. But at the expiration of year one, and we're going into year two now, and then you realize, I can't come up with all that money again, right? Because some situation changed and I can't come up. And not only that, sometimes these same persons look back and say, well, Jessel, I didn't even go by the dentist last year and
Yes.
I spent all this money. So they start now to justify the need for the health plan because I didn't go to the doctor last year, girl. I fit as a fiddle, you know?
Mhm.
What I tend to tell people for that, because I believe having a health plan is very, very important. You just never know when
Correct.
some health issue is going to hit you, and then you find yourself scampering, or you may be doing the barbecue, the curricue, whatever it is, to
Mhm.
raise funds for your medical issues. So I encourage persons to try and get what is called a group health plan. The group health plan is, of course, covering a group. Some institution is the owner of the plan. So, like, I work at a particular company, and the company that I work for offers us as staff a group health plan.
Hmm.
One of the major benefits of it is that I do not pay it annually. I pay it every month as my normal other monthly expenses. That way, I don't feel the burden of a lump sum annually if
Mhm.
it's broken down into 12 small parts.
But
So
can
what?
that be done if you if it's outside of an employer situation? Because a lot of Tobagoan employers, they're just not going there because they're struggling too. Can
Right.
it
So
be done like within your family or so?
no, no. So not like within the family. But let me
Uh,
let me let me explain. There are some other institutions that offer health plan. I can tell you, some credit unions now, as part of their benefit to their members,
mhm.
they offer their members to be on a health plan.
Yeah, I saw that in
So
my credit union.
that's right.
Yeah.
So you now have an array of persons from different walks of life, but we come together under the umbrella of X credit union. And you now have the option to be covered under a health plan, a group health plan. One of
Mm.
the major benefits to you is that you do not have to pay it annually.
Mm.
So the normal everyday working person who gets a monthly salary, part of your monthly bill is X amount of dollars to be paid at the credit union so that my family and I can be covered under the credit union's group health plan,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
So that it does not put too many people out of the bracket
Right.
to enjoy the benefits of having a health plan,
We are slowly
right?
becoming America.
Very correct.
Yes.
Very correct.
This is
Because
an American system.
it is. I say to people, if you want to go to some of the high-end healthcare providers in Trinidad, one
Mhm.
of the questions you must be able to answer is, do you have insurance?
Yeah.
Because even though they know they're going to be giving you health care, they are running a business.
Yes.
And part of their business is to make sure that you can pay. So if you don't have the health plan, then you must have the dollars to make sure you can pay the people.
Yeah, which you have to show up front.
That's right, because it is not a situation of, they need to be certain that you can pay for this.
You know,
right?
we really perhaps even need to do a session with just sensitization around how you can make these things work for you, because unfortunately we are in a world now where, as regular citizens, you no longer have the option to say, no, I don't want this.
That's
and
right.
we're in the last days of us being able to say, no, I don't want insurance. I remember when I used to be like that client that you talk about, when I looked at insurance, health insurance, and I said, but I ain't go to the doctor for the year. Now, I was in my early 20s. In the time that has passed since, I am at a stage now, even in my early 30s, I got to a stage where I recognize, hey, it's not about going to the doctor when you're sick, but it's about the preventative care. And that's how I started making my spend on health insurance work for me. So I say, okay, I am paying. And at that time, I dare say, even companies like yours, because when I started with my nice health insurance where it was 80-20, I used to pay a monthly premium. But unfortunately, people are people, and I suppose, I'm guessing, I don't know, I suppose people were dishonest and they made claims and they never paid. And when it was time, when that insurance ended and I left the country, came back, and now I wanted another insurance, I got presented with that application that you talk about there that says, well, here is an annual premium, and your only option is to do it in 2 parts every 6 months or the full thing. And then when I looked at what was presented to me based on my age and my medical history that was done, it was, Jessel, it was twice the amount that I was paying when I was paying a monthly premium. And I said, but what kind of craziness is this? But then I started looking and I said, you know what? I don't even have the option to refuse this. That's when you know you're in a jam, because right. the reality of our existence, you don't have the option to refuse it. And we know what our healthcare, public healthcare is like. People are trying, but we just don't have the resources that are required, right? That's but right. Like I was saying, what I did with my health insurance is that I started things that I suppose I did not necessarily, I wasn't nurtured into doing naturally by default, like those going for your cleaning twice a year, that kind of thing. I implemented that, you know, so I did the annual checkup. I went to the doctor, you got your pap smear done, you know, you do all your tests. I went and checked my eyes, even though I didn't need glasses then. So I made the insurance work for me, because I was thinking, if I spending all this money to the company, I ain't getting back nothing. Let me use it, you know, for my own good. But in this case, I suppose I felt a little better, knowing that even though I was still spending and spending more, I was taking necessary precautions to make sure that my health stayed good. And I will say that from then up until now, very recently, when I was doing all the checkups, I've been good. Excellent. You know, and then we had a situation like COVID where everybody, whether you're good or bad, some kind of nonsense just happening there. So that's just as an aside, you know, for whoever listening and perhaps they're thinking about justifying the spend. Some of us have been there, and we understand that. And while you really may not have the dollars to make the decision now, it might be something to plan for. And Jessel, you mentioned the option of the credit union, the option of your job. I don't know if maybe there's a way. I know insurance companies running a business. I don't know if there's a way for insurance companies to go to employers, especially in Tobago and these smaller Caribbean islands, and make some sort of option, you know, available where they feel like, okay, yes, I can reasonably contribute to this. And I mean, you saw with COVID, people wasn't even paying NIS.
That's
So
right.
I ain't sure you could convince them to pay insurance because NIS cheap.
And they're not paying it.
And they were not paying NIS. And that's the other reason I wanted to talk about health insurance as well, because even with NIS, which is a government scheme, if you don't have recent contributions, like to get the sick benefit there, you need to have contributions 10 weeks up to the point that you're making the claim. And NIS payout isn't very big.
It isn't. It isn't.
You know, that payout is a comfort payout to buy groceries, you know. That's not to really do anything with your health, you know. So that's kind of why I wanted, you know, to push this as well. I know we were supposed to do it well before, but I suppose I came at it a little renewed just from recent experiences here on the need for the health insurance. Are there any things, as we close off, to come again some other point, are there any things that you want to leave whoever would listen to this podcast episode? Any nuggets that you want to leave? Any little tips for people who might want to approach an insurance company and worried? Any little thing that you think, especially in this case, a Tobagonian, and I am putting in the people from the other small islands, you know, the Grenada, the St. Vincent, because those islands have a daily life that is more comparable to what we have in Tobago versus what obtains in Trinidad. Trinidad have a different thing going on, but for the average Tobagonian, our life is very similar to the average Grenadian, to the average Vincentian, to the average Dominican. So what you are saying to us here will basically apply, and the companies all exist in the region anyhow. So it's more or less the same companies that they will be dealing with, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Again, as I started off, do not let a health crisis become a financial crisis. The cost of living is high. And when I say the cost of living, I'm not just talking about food prices. If we are to try to mitigate against a lot of the risk factors that we are exposed to just by living, we need to try and plan for as many of them as possible. And health is one of those areas that, because we tend not to embrace preventative health care, which is the beginning of really taking care of yourself health-wise, we end up in the critical part. So I want to encourage persons, somehow when we spend money for things, we have more of an appreciation for it. So as you just said, because you had to pay for the health, man, you say, here what? Let me go and get my teeth clean. Let me go and do a checkup, because you were spending for it. But somehow when we don't spend, we just leave it to fall at the wayside. So my encouragement again would be, if you can get yourself a group health plan, because it may be easier to pay 1 month as opposed to annually. Get onto the plan. Do not see it as an expense, which is money you're wasting, but see it as an investment in your health care. You never know when some situation is going to occur where you'd be so thankful that there was this plan that worked for you in your time of need.
Yeah, okay. And last question, with the regular health, is mental health included in that coverage in terms of, let's say you don't have like a mental illness diagnosed, but you want to see a psychologist for something like regular depression or stress, and you want to go and talk to a therapist, psychologist, etc. Is that covered in the plan?
I don't think psychologists are covered, but I know psychiatrists.
Medical. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And that's the difference, because the psychologist is not the medical doctor, whereas the psychiatrist is a trained medical doctor and can give medication, etc. But psychiatrists deal mainly with diagnosed illnesses, bipolar, schizophrenia, chronic depression, etc. All right. Well, if I to ask you everything that's on my mind here, we will not stop this conversation. So
I don't mind. We can go through this because it's education.
Yes,
right?
yes.
I think it's important for people to be
educated. I think I have to co-opt you to perhaps coming in once a month, so we will add the discussion.
We can do that. We can do that. Even if it's a quarter, I don't even mind if it's a quarterly something.
Yes,
I am okay with that.
Yeah. Thank you, Jessel.
You're so welcome.
Listen, we had this conversation so that when you listen to this podcast episode, not only you get required information, but hopefully you take action. We've had this conversation so that you will be able to handle your business.
Handle Your Business, a weekly podcast discussing a little of this and a little of that. Handle Your Business appropriately blends serious topics with fun topics, all in an effort to help you have a good or better life. So join me, your host, Lady Lashley, and some amazing guests every Sunday at 5 p.m. to explore everything from financial management to dealing with relationship challenges. Put it in your calendar every Sunday from 5 p.m. Tune in to Handle Your Business to get you ready for the week ahead. For more details, follow at Lady Lashley TT on Instagram and Facebook. Handle Your Business.